The National Bolivarian Armed Forces of Venezuela has established a security zone in the border state of Apure in order to guarantee peace in the face of destabilization attempts by regular armed groups from Colombia. Democratic People's Republic of Korea has announced that it will not participate in the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. Foreign Ministry has stressed that the outcome of talks with Vienna aimed at salvaging the 2015 nuclear deal will depend on European parties to the accord, leaning on the United States to lift sanctions against Iran. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. The Venezuelan Minister of Defense, Vladimir Padrino Lopez, offered an assessment on the actions undertaken by the National Bolivarian Armed Forces in response to the attacks by regular armed Colombian groups in the border state of Apure. The Venezuelan official offered details on the struggle being waged by military forces against irregular armed groups on the border with Colombia as part of the 2021 Bolivarian Shield military operation. He stressed that the violent events have been ongoing for the past 2 weeks in the border state of Apure and that the internal conflict in Colombia continues to have a negative impact on the Venezuelan population. The minister also denounced that the Colombian government has failed to control drug trafficking and the escalating violence that has been affecting the neighboring country for more than 70 years. Finally, he announced strategic public security plans to address acts that threaten the peace and also the security of the nation.
Temporary defense zone. We have named it Major General José Cornelio Muñoz, which will be led by Major General Alejandro Javier Benítez Marcano, with the General Staff of Coordination, and we have immediately activated the 94th Negro Primero Special Integral Brigade, which will be commanded by Brigadier General Wilfredo Alexander Medrano Machado, who will be assigned the necessary military units, means, and equipment.
The Defense Minister also reiterated the request presented by Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza to the United Nations to strengthen training of the removal of anti-personnel mines following the attacks on Venezuelan territory by Colombian armed groups.
In order to disarm all these mines, to really clean the territory of Apure State, the strategic command operations of the Bolivarian National Armed Forces are doing their job. All the defense sectors are focused on creating the necessary capacity to clear all mines in this specific conflict zone. As such, the Minister of Foreign Affairs has sent this document to the United Nations to request training on anti-personnel mines.
The Venezuelan official also highlighted the work of the National Bolivarian Armed Forces, which in 15 days have done what it will take Colombia a year to do due to the lack of political and military will on the part of the Colombian government.
With what the Strategic Operational Command is doing there in Apure, we have done what would take Colombia a year. I take the commander of the Integrated Operational Defense Zone's word for it, because it really is the case. If there exists the will of the government, if there is firmness among the military authorities, if the military authorities are not penetrated by drug trafficking, if the civilian, local, regional authorities of Apure are not penetrated by drug trafficking as they are on the Colombian side, here, with a political and military will, we can undertake the task.
In Ecuador, the National Electoral Council announced it will make the ballot casting process for the visually impaired more easy by incorporating Braille into the electoral materials. According to the Electoral Authority, this initiative was already applied in the first round of the elections held on February 7th. The objective is to guarantee the rights of the sector of the population, ensure social inclusion, and promote the political participation of all citizens. Braille materials will be placed at voting sites throughout the country. On April 11th, Ecuador will hold the second round of the presidential elections, which will see Andrés Araúz of the Union for Hope coalition face off against Guillermo Lasso of the Creating Opportunities Party. 1 week before Peru's general elections, there is a maximum uncertainty regarding the outcome, as 2 polls show a technical tie between 5 presidential candidates, of which only 2 can go to the second round. The last 2 polls that by law can be published before the vote coincide in reflecting the intention to vote as very fragmented and divided, as the best positioned candidates hardly managed to exceed 10% of the votes. In the context of the ongoing political crisis in the country, the disinterest and indecision of the Peruvian electorate also continues to be very high, since approximately 30% plan to vote blank or null, or have not yet decided what to do with their vote. The first poll shows Johnny Descano of the Popular Action Party in first place, with 14.7% support. He is followed by economist Hernando de Soto from the right-wing Go on Country Social Integration Party with 13.9%. The second poll shows Keiko Fujimori of the far-right Popular Force Party and facing trial over corruption allegations as tied in first place with Fernando de Soto, each with 9.8% of the vote. In the context of the upcoming legislative elections to be held in Mexico in June, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador pointed to the lack of transparency in the process, stressing that fraudulent acts have harmed the population.
I'm going to keep quiet about this because we have been victims of electoral fraud, and fraud has cost for the people a lot, a huge lot. In addition, social activists who have been working in favor of democracy have lost their lives, activists that after fraudulent elections began to protest and they were murdered.
The Mexican president also provided details about the mass vaccination process being carried out in the country, with priority given to senior citizens.
75% of the elderly have already been vaccinated, and to me this is very satisfactory, representing about 1.2 million.
In Uruguay, the National Commission for a Referendum requested the government to extend the deadline for the collection of signatures to stand up to the constitutional referendum to repeal 135 articles of the law of urgent. The National Commission for the Referendum claimed in a meeting with the Vice President of Uruguay, Beatriz Argiman, that the restrictive measures against COVID-19 make it difficult to collect signatures required to advance to the popular consultation. Before this scenario, the promoters of the proposal against the executive regulations asked that the period that, according to the Uruguayan constitution, ends on July 9th. It is recalled that the Commission must bring together at least 750,000 headings to carry forward the consultative process. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. Democratic People's Republic of Korea has announced that it will not participate in the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games that will kick off in Japanese capital in July in order to protect its athletes from possible COVID-19 infections. The decision was made known by a late Monday publication on the website of the North Korean Sports Department, which reports on the results of the Asian countries' Olympic Committee assembly held on 25th March, which adopted the decision resolution not to send athletes to the Olympic Games. The extreme level of incarceration activated to prevent the spread of the virus has led to the almost total suspension of trade with China, from which North Korea buys 90% of its imports, raising fears about the scarcity of commodities, and has led most diplomats to leave the country. In Haiti, over a year after the pandemic began, vaccine doses are non-existent, raising concern among health experts. Haiti is scheduled to receive 756,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine through the Global COVAX initiative aimed at ensuring the neediest countries get COVID-19 shots. According to the Pan American Health Organization, the country didn't apply for a pilot program in which it will have received some of its allotted doses earlier. Many poorer countries have experienced long waits in getting vaccine through COVAX, as richer countries snap at supplies, though most have not received at least an initial shipment. Doctors and health personnel are deeply concerned that the well-being of Haitians is being pushed aside as violence and political instability deepen across the country. Residents of some of Brazil's largest and poorest neighborhoods protested in Sao Paulo on Monday against what they say is an inadequate government response to the economic effects of the coronavirus pandemic. The street demonstration forms part of the G10 favelas, a movement led by the residents' associations of the country's 10 biggest favelas.
Emergency aid of 27 USD is not enough to buy a domestic gas cylinder, 5 kilograms of rice, and 1 kilogram of beans. A family cannot survive a month with this aid. It is a shame that Brazil, a rich country with so many opportunities, leaves its population suffering from hunger.
It brings me such sadness. My fear is that my daughters go hungry. One of them is still under 18. I'm so afraid of not having enough to buy things for the house. There's also my granddaughter, and I think to myself, will they go hungry?
The emergency aid of 27 USD is not enough to buy a domestic gas cylinder, 5 kilograms of rice, and 1 kilogram of beans.
Residents aged over 70 in the Colombian capital Bogotá are being vaccinated against COVID-19 with the AstraZeneca jabs, as the South American country sees a surge in virus cases. Colombian President Iván Duque, who has been heavily criticized for his slow and limited response to the health crisis, recently toughened curfew measures in the cities with the highest occupancy rates of intensive care beds to contain a new wave of coronavirus cases and fatalities.
I think it's fabulous for protection, for our health. I think this vaccine system is very good. I feel very happy and thank God that I was able to get vaccinated today. The third peak has already begun. In many other cities in the world, it is spreading very aggressively. In some regions of Colombia, such as the Caribbean coast of Antioquia, it is spreading very aggressively. In Bogotá, it is just beginning. We can still control the impact of the third peak with our behavior, which is the best way to control it. I think it's...
The director of the United States Centers for Disease Control and Prevention noted on Monday that COVID-19 cases in the country are increasing nationally, especially among younger adults. Dr. Rochelle Walensky referred to the increasing spread of new variants of the coronavirus, but also stressed that a rise in youth sports and extracurricular activities are contributing to the steady increase in cases over the last 4 weeks. The expert likewise pointed to positive developments among the most vulnerable age groups, saying senior citizens' virus deaths have reached their lowest levels since the early fall. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Monday confirmed pubs and restaurants will be reopened to serve outdoors in a week's time, as COVID restrictions are lifted in England, but sounded a note of caution on international travel resuming. Johnson said criteria for moving forward with a second phase of easing restrictions in England had been met. From April 12th, non-essential retail, gyms, hairdressers and outdoor hospitality will be reopened. However, the Prime Minister gave little information on the resumption of non-essential international travel from the United Kingdom, despite massive demand for summer holidays abroad. The Global Travel Task Force is to announce more details on the UK's travel roadmap this week, after a traffic light system was unveiled for testing of quarantine after travel to different nations. Currently, people arriving from abroad are required to self-isolate for 10 days, and British nationals who arrive from a banned red list of high-risk countries face costly quarantine in government-approved hotels. Kosovo's Prime Minister Albin Kurti announced new restrictions on Monday to stop the spread of the coronavirus. The new measures, which take effect on Tuesday, include restrictions on movements between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. local time. The government stated that all schools and education centers below university level, except kindergartens, will shut for a week from April 12th to 18th. In addition, universities will be closed from Tuesday until April 18th, along with restaurants, which will only be allowed to offer takeaway, collection, or drive-through services during this period. The Prime Minister said the restrictions were needed to slow the spread of the virus and to stop hospitals from reaching full capacity. Nigeria began clinical trials on 2 vaccines against COVID-19 developed in the country this Monday. Vaccines were developed by a team of scientists and virology specialists with the support of the federal government, which contributed almost $25 million for the creation of antidotes and to encourage the presidential scientific advance on COVID-19 in the country. Federation Government Secretary announced that vaccines will be used after completion of trials and certification is obtained. This Monday, India reported over 100,000 new daily COVID-19 infections for the first time. Hopes at the start of the year that the outbreak may be subsiding in the vast nation of 1.3 million people have been dashed in recent weeks, as a fresh wave pushed the national total to 12.5 million infections and 165,000 fatalities. The country's worst-hit states, Maharashtra, home to India's financial and entertainment capital, Mumbai, ramp up its coronavirus restrictions as cases surge, with nearly 60,000 reported in the last 24 hours. Struggling state authorities on Sunday tightened the evening curfew to allow only people involved in essential services out of their homes from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. The region of 110 million people will also see weekend lockdowns, with gatherings of over 4 people banned and places of worships and restaurants shut.
It is worsening. Now more and more contacts they are coming in. So more positive cases we'll find in coming days. It will be more number of cases. People are not following the whatever guidelines government has been giving, health guidelines. They are not following it.
People are not like this one. They are not wearing masks, and there are a lot of weddings. Marketplaces are open, and elections are happening in the country. So all this is leading to the rise in pandemic, and another 2-3 months is going to be very bad for India.
Just I'm scared of getting a corona this thing, and now I am 48 years old because I don't want to take a risk. That's why I came over here to take a vaccination.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us.